How many times do you wake up in the morning and you have a task list full of things to do and you go, all right, I have to have a really productive day. I have to get all of these things done. So you psych yourself up, you sit down at the desk, you get ready to do some work, and within a few minutes, you're distracted. You're checking the group chats, you're looking at some notifications, maybe you're launching up YouTube to watch some videos. You're pretending you're being productive, but you're not actually getting anything done. And the day comes to an end and you haven't done half the things you were supposed to do and you're hating yourself. You're sitting there like, what? Why can't I get the things done that I'm supposed to get done? Why can't I focus? Why can't I concentrate? It seems like everyone else finds it so easy to get stuff done, but me, it's so difficult. It's so tough. Why is this happening to me? There must be something wrong with my brain. There's no way that my brain is operating like a normal person if I can't sit down and get any work done. And guess what? I hate to break it to you, but you're probably right. Your brain probably isn't operating how it should be. You're probably not operating at the level that you have, the potential that you have inside of you. Your brain is probably operating right now at maybe 30% of its potential. This is probably why that's the case. First of all, you're probably training a short attention span. Throughout the day, there's probably maybe 5 or 10 things that you're doing that are training your brain to reduce your attention span, to make it so that it is incredibly difficult for you to sit down and actually focus on anything. If you wake up and first thing you're doing in the morning is checking your notifications, looking at group chats, scrolling social media, scrolling TikTok, watching videos, then what you're doing is you're instantly providing your brain with a huge amount of dopamine, a huge amount of good feeling for providing a lot of stimulus, for looking at 15 different conversations and 20 different pieces of information on social media and all of these different contexts within a few seconds. And it's not as if you're focusing on each individual thing for 20, 30 minutes at a time. It's probably 20 or 30 seconds tops. Realistically, it's probably 2 or 3 seconds. When I see people out and about and they're scrolling their phone, what I notice is they maybe look at one thing for 3 to 5 seconds and then next, and then 3 to 5 seconds and then next. And you're getting a huge amount of dopamine. You're feeling really good for providing a lot of different contexts, a lot of different situations, a lot of different stimulus in a very, very short time frame. You're training your brain to associate feeling really good with lots of different quick stimulus. So then when you sit down to do work and you go, okay, let me do a task that requires me to concentrate for, let's say at least 30 minutes, but more like an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. Let me sit down and do that. And your brain is thinking, but everything else we've done in the day has been 2 to 3 seconds. And I feel really good doing that. Why would I want to sit down and spend an hour focusing on a difficult task when I could spend an hour focusing on 100, 1,000 small little things that feel really, really good? So what we're doing throughout the day is we're training our brain to feel really good for doing fast, really quick activities that provide us a lot of stimulus. Think about if you scrolled social media. If you spent 10 minutes scrolling social media, how many different contexts have you been provided with? How many different people have you been shown? How many different conversations have you been consuming or watching? How many different points of information have you received? Probably hundreds over the course of 10 minutes. So when you sit down to do a task for an hour that requires your focus on one thing, how on earth are you going to do that? Everything else you've done throughout the day that you've enjoyed, that has felt really good, has been the complete opposite of that. Why would I want to sit down and focus on one task, isolate my attention on one thing, when everything else in my environment is the complete opposite? Everything else is 100 different things over the course of 10 minutes that feel really good. Of course, I don't want to sit down and do the work. That's probably why you sit down and within a few minutes of trying to do some work, you're creeping over to look at your phone, or you're opening up a new tab to open up YouTube, or you're just trying to get away from the work, trying to pull yourself away from actually focusing on one thing, because your brain knows, I don't do that. I don't focus on one thing for an hour. I focus on 100 things for 10 minutes. So think about what this is doing to our brain. Think about how we're training our brain. If over the course of, let's say, an hour or 2 hours, you've flooded your brain with a huge amount of dopamine, a huge amount of good feelings for receiving maybe 1,000 different pieces of stimulus, that's going to do a significant amount to your brain. And then consider the fact that you do that every day for the course of years. What do you think that's done to your brain? That has probably made it very, very difficult. In fact, nearly impossible to sit down and focus on an individual task for long periods of time. No wonder you maybe think, oh, do I have ADHD? Is there something wrong with my brain? Maybe I have ADHD because I can't focus on tasks. There must be something inherently wrong with the biology of my brain. It's not the fact that I've constantly trained and rewarded quick stimulus, a short attention span. It must be something wrong with my brain. The second reason you probably can't focus no matter how hard you try is you've created what I call a dopamine anchor. Now, what a dopamine anchor is a behavior or an activity that you're doing on a regular basis that provides a huge amount of dopamine, but is really easy to do. Think about when you're scrolling social media. Think about when you're binge watching videos. Think about when you're binge watching TV shows. Think about when you're playing video games. What you're doing is you're flooding your brain with a huge amount of dopamine. You're feeling really good, and there's nothing inherently wrong with receiving a bunch of dopamine. The problem is you're receiving a huge amount of dopamine from doing an activity that is incredibly easy. All of those activities I mentioned, scrolling your phone, playing video games, binge watching TV shows, what are you doing here? Well, you're sitting down and at most, you're moving your fingers a little bit. That's all you're doing. You're moving your fingers a little bit and sitting on your ass. How difficult is that? It's probably about the easiest thing that you could possibly do. So then, you sit down and you go, all right, now I need to focus on an individual task for a few hours. It's going to be really difficult and it's not going to be very enjoyable. What is your brain going to think? Your brain is going to think, why on earth are you doing that? Why are you doing something that doesn't feel good, is very difficult, and takes a long time, when we have something very, very easy that we can do that feels significantly better and takes way less time? I don't want to sit down and work on my business for a few hours. I want to sit down and scroll social media. I want to sit down and play video games. I want to sit down and watch a TV show. I don't want to sit down and do work. And the reason is because I've created an anchor. I've created a baseline. My brain is now constantly comparing every other task that I do throughout the day with this anchor, with this easy thing that feels really good. I want to go work out. No, you don't. You want to scroll your phone. I want to work on my business. No, you don't. You want to play video games. I don't want to do anything that's difficult, that takes a lot of effort and doesn't feel as good when I have something that feels really good and doesn't take any effort at all. So what you've done is you've constantly made this contrast. And I'll give you a little analogy for this. If I sat down and I put a plate of Brussels sprouts and sardines in front of you and I say, there you go, here's your dinner. You're going to laugh at me and say, there is not a chance on earth I'm eating this. I had McDonald's a few hours ago. I'm not eating this. But if I sat down and gave you that exact same plate and you hadn't ate food for 2 weeks, you know what you're doing? You are inhaling that. You're inhaling that and it's going to be the best meal you've ever had in your entire life. Have I given you anything different? No. But you're just comparing that Brussels sprouts and sardines with the McDonald's you ate 2 hours ago. This McDonald's is the social media. This McDonald's is the video games. It's the Netflix. It's all of the easy things that feel really good. So your brain's constantly comparing these easy, good things to everything else you do throughout the day. You've created an anchor and everything else in comparison feels terrible. The third reason why you can't focus no matter how hard you try is because you probably have really low dopamine levels. Our brain is really good at trying to regulate and balance our dopamine so we're at around a normal level throughout the day. But if you're constantly elevating your dopamine levels, if you wake up in the morning and you're instantly on TikTok or you're instantly checking group chats, you're instantly watching videos or on social media, you're spiking your dopamine significantly and you're constantly spiking it throughout the day with the video games, with the scrolling, with all of these things, you're providing your brain a lot of dopamine. And what happens is your brain goes, all right, you're receiving way too much dopamine right now, man. We're going to have to bring this down for everything. You're going to have to receive less dopamine for everything so you're in that normal range. Now what this means is not only are the video games, not only is the social media, not only are the Netflix shows going to feel less enjoyable, everything feels less enjoyable. The work you do feels less enjoyable. The workouts you do feel less enjoyable. The time you spend with your friends feels less enjoyable. Everything is less enjoyable. And when everything is less enjoyable, everything is more difficult. Everything is harder to do. So you sit down to do work for an hour. Okay, I need to get work done for 1 hour. It is going to be significantly less enjoyable if you have really low dopamine levels. And what happens if something's significantly less enjoyable? What happens if the work that you're doing you absolutely despise? Well, you may do it once or twice. You may be able to grit your teeth and push through with a bit of willpower, but you're not going to be able to do that for long periods of time. You're going to hate your work, and you're probably going to find any excuse to not do it. Any excuse to just check the notifications. Any excuse to open up a new tab and just go and watch some videos. Anything but doing the work itself, because it is so unenjoyable, because your dopamine levels are so incredibly low. No wonder you cannot focus to save your life when you sit down, you've trained yourself to have a poor attention span, you have a dopamine anchor, which makes everything else in comparison suck, and you have low dopamine levels, so all of your work is unenjoyable. Of course, you can't get any work done. Of course, you can't concentrate on anything because you're operating at a fraction of what you could be performing at. You've created a mental environment that is so poor for actually getting stuff done, for producing outcomes, for taking actions that are going to move you towards your goals. You've created the worst possible mental environment. So what can we do about this? How can I stop training a poor attention span? How can I get rid of that dopamine anchor? How can I increase my overall dopamine levels? There's only one thing you can do, and I call this dopamine rewiring. And this is fundamentally the process of removing the cheap dopamine, removing the online entertainment. When you remove the online entertainment, you've removed the ability to easily train a poor attention span. You no longer have a really easy thing that you can constantly do that feels really good, which means you no longer have an anchor. You no longer have a reference point for your brain to go, I don't want to do these hard things because I have easy things to do that feel really good. And you're no longer receiving crazy high amounts of dopamine all the time. So your brain starts to go, oh, well, your dopamine levels are quite low right now. Let me bring them up for everything. So now the work is more enjoyable. Your workouts are more enjoyable. Every aspect of your life is more enjoyable, which makes it a lot easier to get work done. I know this is the case because I've lived without online entertainment completely for over 11 months. When I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was told there is something fundamentally wrong with your brain. That's why you can't concentrate on tasks properly. Take these drugs. This will fix everything. I don't take any drugs. I have not encountered the problem of procrastination for months, which is probably impossible for someone who actually has ADHD. The reality is, most of us don't have ADHD. There's not something fundamentally wrong with our brains. There's nothing wrong with the biology of your brain. The problem is that we're training our brains to have short attention spans. We're training our brains to have that constant dopamine anchor, and we're plummeting our overall dopamine levels, making it impossible to concentrate on tasks. If you really want to reclaim your focus, be able to actually sit down and get stuff done, then dopamine rewiring, removing the online entertainment so that you don't have any of these anchors, you don't have the short attention span, you can actually enjoy the work you're doing. This is fundamentally how you're going to improve your focus levels without needing to take ridiculous medications and drugs that are fundamentally destroying your brain. If you're interested in learning more about dopamine rewiring, you can join our free community. When you join, we'll provide you a fully customized dopamine rewiring roadmap based on your goals, your objectives. We'll run you through all that. It is completely free. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link in the description below for you to check out. I hope this video gave you guys a new perspective on how you can improve your focus. If you want to see more videos like this, there's plenty more in my YouTube channel. There's probably a few around here somewhere. So I will see you in one of those.